So a lot of online learning is going on right now, and I'm seeing a lot of teachers having to put up their own stuff, record stuff on their phones. So I wanted to together this video of a walkthrough on how to edit these videos, these simple videos. Now, there's a number of software that you can choose from. If you want to choose something like what's called LumaFusion, which is something you can use to edit your phone videos or edit those phone videos on your iPad, you can do that. And maybe I'll create a separate tutorial on how to use it. But for the time being, though, I think if you are in the long run of going to edit videos, Davinci Resolve Studio. And the reason being is because one is you can try it out for free. And then if you like it, then later on you can pay about $300 for it. Or if you buy one of their pocket cameras, you can get it for $1,300 included. All right, so this is going to be a super simple, basic walkthrough of how to use Davinci Resolve. I hope it'll help you construct your videos and make stuff for your students. But you can obviously apply this to anything. You might be able to apply this to making your first videos to promote your business, for example. All right, so let's get started. Oh, before we start, I hope you'll like and subscribe to the channel. So let's go. If you've launched Davinci Resolve, then this will be likely the first screen that you see, and it's the list of your projects. And currently the way I organize that is I have my older projects in a folder, and if you were to want to create that folder, you'd click on New Folder. So generally intuitive. And then these are the projects that I have that are more current. So in your case, if you're starting out, you're going to click on New Project, and you're going to type in the project name. Let's just call it New Project Name. Okay, and you would then click the Create button. Now, after you've created that project, you're probably going to reuse the same elements. So I would recommend that you just keep on loading up that previous project and then keep adding to it. And then when you start a different type of series or short film or whatever, then you create a new project. And that's generally how I manage things. Okay, so in our case, I'm going to click cancel here, and I'm going to go into the vlog files project, and I'm going to double click on this. I think this is really good because if I were just starting out blank, you wouldn't really have an idea of what things would look like as you get more advanced and you do more things. So now I'm going to go through the entire interface from a very, very simple point of view so that you get an idea of how to start. So in this corner right here, this is the file structure for your project. You can see that I have done a number of things for my YouTube channel, my tutorials, a talk show I have called Upgrade, and then my vlogging, my tech reviews. This one is something I recently did, so it's out there in the main directory, but it probably should be removed to tech reviews eventually. And this is another thing that I've just started called Camera Conspiracies. That should probably end up going into tech reviews. But as you'll see, though, you can continue to move things. Let's say, for example, I want to move this into tech reviews. I can do that, and it just goes into folders. And let's do conspiracies just to give you another one. There you go. And now, clicking on these arrows, you can see that I can minimize, but you can also see all the number of videos that I've done in the past for my channel. So you have the tutorials and the upgrade series and the vlog. Let's go into tutorials because that's where we're going to show you how to. And in the editing, I keep it organized like this. So now again, you can see how I'm drilling down. And so I'm going to walk you through actually constructing this actual video. So I'm going to click on walkthrough. And what I've done is I've created a timeline. All right, so I want to show you quickly how to create the timeline. So you would go into the file and you would click create new timeline, and then you should name it whatever you want it as, but let's call it new timeline for now. And then number of video tracks can be 1 and audio tracks can be 1, and these could be changed later. Typically you might want to do 3, and then the tracks can be stereo or mono depending on how you recorded it. Stereo should be fine. And then time code, I think that's something more complicated for you to understand later on, so let's skip that and click create. Let's not go there yet, but if I were to double click on it, you'll see that it's already loaded here. And so this is the actual timeline. This is the directions on how the video will play back. So what will happen is, now I think we should bring in the files that you're going to work with. Okay, so now I'm going to drag these files that were in my folder where I keep my video files into Davinci Resolve. And you can see it has the list of clip names. So if I double click on this video here, right, so then I can load this other clip here by double clicking on it. So this is the viewer, and what I can do is I can bring the entire video to the timeline. And I'm going to go over here and widen the timeline so I can see a broader view of that video. And in the timeline, you can see I can just kind of sift through the video as well. And in the viewer, I can view through the video. That's one way to bring a file in. Now, normally this is the I've shot the beginning, which is this, and I'll shorten the timeline again, and this is the ending, and I'll bring this in here. I'll bring this a little closer, and your tutorial I'm going to stick here. Obviously not going to show you what I do and how I edit the tutorial, but you can look at some of the other tutorials that I've done. But you can see though that it's the entire file, and normally you want to cut that down to make everything nice and tight, or as tight as possible. Obviously these are tutorials and the YouTube videos, so while I do believe in quality, there's a sort of a time limit to produce these as well. Let's say, for example, I only want part of the clip, so we're going to play it back, and let's say I want to start here. Well, the first thing I can do is press the letter I, or click on this Mark In button. Okay. And so if I want to take the end part of it, I could press O. And if I only want that part of the clip, I will click on this video and drag it in to the timeline, like so. Or what I could do is drag it in to this video window, and it'll give me different options. And they're pretty self-explanatory. In this case, I'm going to use insert or overwrite. And those are the ones that you're going to use the most. So let's do that. And as you can see where the timeline was, it put it in the beginning. Okay, pretty cool. So we're actually getting to something here. So what I did was also, now I just moved over that other video. I created a space here. Okay. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is the toolbox. And in the toolbox, I can add things like text. I can add in different color bars or windows. I can add video transitions. And the way you would do that, let's take, for example, titles, because I think that'll be the most important. And again, there's a tutorial for titles as well, which you should watch separately. Let's pull by clicking on the text and dragging it here. So now in the timeline, I can go to that particular time, and I can click on the inspector, which is over here, and then I can click on the video of where it is, and I can, using different settings, move that title. So in this case, I'm going to the XY position, and I'm moving it to where I want it. Let's say, for example, I think this is a good spot. Okay. Then I can change the font of that. So this is very much like Microsoft Word or Pages. And there it's Arial. And I might say online learning. Okay, now that it's typed out, maybe I want to put it a little bit more to the right. And you can place it anywhere you want. And then from here, you can see that there's different things you can do to the text that you want to do. Okay. And then let's say you want to get a little bit fancier and you want to add a transition to this text. Well, let's click on the edge of this text box and let's add a cross dissolve. Okay, and let's add that to the end. And so then let's mouse over that text box and make it a little bit longer. And let's play back what happens. So now you can see that the text fades in nicely and fades out nicely. And that's pretty much really simple but effective in any of these really tutorial videos. That's really all you need. You don't need things to fly in or fly out. You just need it to look presentable. So have a play with that. So now let's review. We've gone through the different areas. This is the bin area. This is the viewer. This is the timeline viewer. This is where the timeline is. This is where things happen. And these are the transitions. Now let's look at a couple other things that are important. These right here are tools. And there's a separate video for the top 5 tools, but these are tools that you're going to use pretty often. In particular, you're going to use this arrow tool almost all the time, about 95% of the time. But then you're going to use this blade tool, I would say, comes in handy. And that's, you can use the keyboard to press B. So between this and this, I would say you're mostly set. And if you want to get more fancier, you could choose these kind of trim modes, but don't get into them for now. Just use the blade and the arrow tool. And then these two tools here, the snapping and the link selection, these are really, really important too, I think, and you're going to use them often. You're not going to use this lock tool too often. Okay, so now let's get into this timeline a bit and give you a little bit more information here. So on the left side, you're going to see that you have different layers, and the layers are for video and audio. So you can see that when you bring a clip in, that you have a sound file, which has some description here, and a video file, and they're linked together. Now, let's say you don't want the audio. Well, then you would click this link selection, and then you would click away, and then you would highlight, let's say, the audio, and you press the delete button on your keyboard. Boom, and then it's gone. Now the audio's there, not there. And that might happen because you might want to redo the audio. As you notice, there's some clicking noises in my audio. So I might want to fix those or cut away from them. Who knows? So I just undid it just so I could leave it there. And then normally though, then you want to bring that back, so you can click on this here. And then as you get good, you're not going to use this arrow key to select it. You're going to use the keyboard to select it. And if you look, there's a shortcut that says Shift Apple L. So you can toggle back and forth between using that tool and not using that tool. Okay, so the other tool which is really important is this snap tool. And as you can see, is if I kind of let the cursor go, this timeline kind of moves it all the way to the very end, so it's exact. Versus if I had to manually do it, I might be off by a frame or two, but the snap tool does that. Now there are cases where you want to be able to move it fluidly and you don't want it to snap every time. So you're going to unclick the snap tool, and now you can be very granular in where you want the timeline to be. Okay, so let's say, for example, I wanted to cut the video at this point. Well, then, as I mentioned, the blade tool, which comes in really handy, I would click on the blade tool, and then I would bring it over into the timeline. Okay, now let's click the snap tool again, because I want to get that exact point, and then I'm press and click, and there. Let me just move the timeline out of the way, and you can see that I've made a snip. I've cut the video file. Okay, now we're going to go over here, and so let's say I want a little bit more viewing space to see how much I have here, and I want to move this video right next to this video that I've created. Well, I'm going to just click on it and drag it, and because I have the snap tool, boom, it goes right here and connects directly. Okay, so again, these are for demonstration purposes, so you can see what I'm doing here. Just as an example, I shorten the file. I can shorten the other end if I don't like it by mousing over and bringing it over. Okay, and then now let's say, for example, I want to join these two files. This is going to happen very often too. Well, if there's a gap, then you click on the gap, and then you see there it's highlighted, and I press the delete button, and boom, they connect up. So very quickly you can see how you can manipulate all your videos and rearrange them if you want. So let me show you another thing that you could do. Now, for example, let's say I like this video and I want to put it on top of one of the other videos. Well, all I do is push it up and move it over. Let's say I don't care for the audio here. Well, I'll click the link tool. I'll select only the audio, and then I'll delete it. Right? Okay. So, now that I've explained to you generally the basics of the editing, how to mark things in and out, moving stuff in the timeline, you're going to have to obviously practice this and create the videos that you want, but generally that's how you do it. Now let me show you some of the other parts of Davinci Resolve which I think are important for you to navigate. So if you notice down here, there's this menu bar, and most of it, if you're doing basic stuff, you don't necessarily need. There's a quick editing tool which is not as common. It's recently out for Davinci Resolve. I would say you don't necessarily need it right now. But if you want to get into it, you can if you're more advanced. This is the color area, which I think you should go to another tutorial to adjust the color of your files. And this is the visual effects area, and this is the sound called Fairlight. a lot of the basic stuff you can do from the Edit tab. And then in the very beginning here, you can go to your Media tab and you can look at all the different media you have. And this is where you can actually bring all your stuff in. I normally just jump to the edit area, but if you have a very big project, then you're probably going to work in here. It might be a little bit more advantageous. Okay. So now this brings me to the file types and the frame and the resolution, which you're going to need to know for the delivery of a file. And when I say delivery, that means outputting your timeline and creating a video so that you can upload it to, let's say, YouTube, which is probably what you're going to do at first. Okay, so if you can look at one of the videos that I have here, well, the frame rate is 24 frames per second approximately. That's what I shoot in, and that's typically how things have been set. You could shoot in 24. Your phones sometimes shoot in 30 frames per second. So you should just go with, at this point in time, since you're so beginning, go with what your camera shot at, and that's likely going to be your phone. So if it's 30 frames per second, that means there are 30 frames in a second of video. And then the resolution, you should go with whatever you've used. Again, there's a tutorial for how to work with phone videos. You should take a look at that, potentially if you're using phone videos and you don't know how to use them. And then this is a description of the sound. So knowing what you shot in, then that is going to dictate what your timeline is in. So now that you understand that, okay, so I think the next thing to do is check your project settings. So go to File and Project Settings, and then in the master settings, this is what's going to be your default timeline. And what you want to do is you want to set it to what the camera you use the most. So for example, if you're using your phone, you may actually be recording at a higher resolution, which might be 4K. And so you're going to want to choose that. I'm not going to change that in mine. And then you're going to want to check the frame rate, and usually it's listed. A lot of times, actually, I would say it may be 30 frames per second if you're working with your phone. And generally, you're going to choose between 24 and 30 frames per second. If you're just starting out, I would highly recommend that you verify what this is and just put it to something approximate. And I actually think, though, that most computers are going to be able to handle this sort of 23976 frame rate up to 30 frames per second. So let's just set these how they are for now, and then as you get more advanced, you can change these things. As you understand more about frame rates and resolution, you can change these things. But I would just recommend that your timeline is set to this, something like this, similar. And then let's move on to the rest of the areas. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I think if you're just starting out, your computer may not be as powerful to handle these higher resolutions and different frame rates. So it's better to start at a very simple frame rate and resolution and then go from there. And now you're ready to go and look at the general user system. Okay, so now that I've gone through everything, I would go now to the Delivery tab, because you want to do a video and send it to YouTube so that it's either going to be outputted to Facebook or whatever system you're going to be using. And so the best thing to do is probably go to this area right here where it says YouTube and leave it all how it is. Name the file. and send it to whatever folder you need. Okay? And these video codecs are pretty much what YouTube would use, so you're probably going to get what you need. And then once that's done, you're going to click Add to Render Queue. And once you've done that and it's in your render queue, you click Start Render. And this video is going to run. I'll start it for now to show you. And there it is rendering the entire video. And it's going to take time based on your computer specs. And once it's at 100%, then you can just send it, and then you can just find it in your file directory. So for now, I'm going to stop this, which you can do. The video is not done. The video is not going to be ready, but you can stop it and start over however you see fit. The last thing I'm going to show you here is that you can actually output parts of the video by shortening this white line. Did you see how I did that? So let's say you wanted the whole video. Well, you could do that and just leave it the way it is. But if I only want up to here, I press the O button, and now I'm only taking from this point to this point. And let's say I wanted it a little bit shorter. I press the I button here, and then boom, I got the beginning and the middle as a small section of the whole thing. And why is this important? Well, you may have stuff over on the timeline that you want to keep around, but you don't want to output. So it might get messy and get really long, and in which case it'd be better just to use this portion here. All right, well, I think this is a good stopping point. This is a good chance for me to walk through on this is a super basic level. And then I would recommend going through my other tutorial videos to get a bigger picture of what to do. But you could actually probably do a video just based on the stuff that I've shown you. If you, and then take it from there. Keep practicing, and hope you'll like and subscribe to this video. And I'll see you next time. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you'll like and subscribe to the channel. There are a ton of other tips on Davinci Resolve and tutorials that I've done. And I'll put a link for you down below, or you can click on one of these playlists right here. All right, thanks.